Welcome to Disconnecting from the Matrix, where the release is from within. I'm your host, Alice Kim, and thank you for joining me for episode number 2. Today we'll discuss why New Year's resolutions, or any resolution for that matter, why they often fail, what that has to do with ego, and what to do instead to create true fulfillment and lasting changes that come from a place of pure self-compassion. Welcome to the show. For those of you who are joining me again, thank you for sticking around. And for those who are here for the first time, I encourage you to go back and listen to the first episode, because in there I speak as briefly as I can, but still comprehensively about most of the important topics that we'll be covering throughout the show. I don't usually read or listen or watch the news, and oftentimes I really don't have any idea what's going on in the world. So this morning I was surprised to get an email from the building managers where I live that said that there is this huge, powerful winter blizzard coming our way here in the Northeast. And me, I live in New York City. I live in downtown Manhattan. And apparently the mayor has warned the city that this blizzard can possibly be one of the, if not the biggest storm that we've ever had in the history of the city. So I get this email and it says that we should definitely go out and get emergency supplies, obviously food and water, but all the other stuff like batteries and flashlights and all of that. And that we should get enough supplies to last us for a whole week because we can anticipate electric and water shutdown. And for those of you who live in New York, you know what happens when there's any kind of a warning of a natural disaster. The whole city just turns into bedlam and there's nothing left on the shelves anymore at stores if you don't get there fast enough. So being in a typical New York dwelling where space is tight, so I don't have any provisions to last me for more than what I need for the next day or two. And so I did manage to go out into the store, and wow, the lines were completely snaked through to the aisles, and I managed to get myself some things, some non-perishable food and some water to last probably a few days. And I also managed to get me some bottles of wine because there's just no way that I can stay bottled up here without anything to drink. Anyway, so here I am. It is in the late afternoon and already the winds have come, the snow is starting. So we're getting ready for a big winter blizzard here in New York City. And I am here in my very cozy walk-in closet, which is my recording studio, trying to get a recording in just in case the electricity is shut off sometime within the next couple of days. And speaking of blizzards and winds that's coming here, nobody really knows how severe it's gonna get. But to me, I'm very excited about it, even though it might cause some inconveniences for the next few days, because what that means, consciously speaking, energetically speaking, what that means is that these big gusts of winds, they're going to come and they're going to clear out so much of the gunk and the heavy stuck energies that has been around here. And I actually look forward to when the city becomes completely covered with snow. This very, very busy city Every time this happens, the city just shuts down. The city gets very, very quiet and basically forces everybody to stay in and not have to deal with all of the busy distractions that we have on a day-to-day basis. The city that's always frantically moving, it's completely forced to stop and be still. And speaking of being still, before I start, I want to begin by taking a good deep breath so that I can also quiet my mind. Just like the winds that are coming, I consider my breath, my deep conscious breath, to be the gust of wind that clears out all of the distractions in my mind so that I can be present and be here to speak to you from my stillness. Join me if you want. I'm going to take a deep breath. And while we're at the subject of breath, I want to touch a little bit about it because it's very, very important that you begin to learn to make a habit of breathing consciously. I have been working on this for many years, and I'm still to this point finding myself so resistant to taking the conscious breath because, like most people, I have a hard time wanting to be still and to be with myself. And what I mean by conscious breath is that unlike the automatic breathing that you do, that's part of your biological mechanism, the thing that you need to do so that you get enough oxygen and nutrients and all that so that you can continue to basically be alive. I'm not talking about that breath. I'm talking about the conscious breath. The conscious breath is the breath that you, as your awareness, choose to breathe in deeply. And just like the winds outside right now, clearing away all of the stuck energy around this area of Earth, the conscious breath is the cleansing breath, the cleansing wind that comes and it cleans out your energetic field and it opens up all of the stuck channels that you have. And why that is important is because if you don't have your stuck parts of you, your energetic parts of you, if you don't have that cleared, then just like a clogged pipe, you're just going to accumulate more and more stuckness to the point where then you're just cause some kind of a overflow or even an eruption, usually in the form of not only stuck life situations, but also as some type of imbalance in the body. And when it gets really bad, it starts developing itself as a disease. So we don't want that. We don't want that. We want to be clear and clean, and this is where this conscious breath comes in. And this is something that we've been doing all our lives, so we just take it for granted. But this is different. The conscious breath is different. You, as a master, are telling yourself that you are using your breath to clear yourself, to center yourself, to ground yourself, and bring your consciousness to this body, to be here in the now moment as your presence, fully embodied in this physical body that you have. And this moment of bringing your consciousness in, to be here with your body, to be here fully present in the now moment, that is truly the only time and space that you have in order for you to do anything different, make changes in your life, create anything you want. It's really the only time and the only place, this present moment, that you can do that. Because otherwise, you're just discombobulated. You are everywhere. Your mind darts from here to there, ping-ponging back and forth, mostly thoughts about the past and then jumping over to hopes and fears about the future. Completely distracted. And all you're doing is dragging your past thoughts and memories up to the present and the future so that you keep creating over and over and over again. Or should I say recreating over and over and over again the projection of your past and experiencing pretty much the same reality over and over and over again. And that's also the reason why your today is not very different from your yesterday, and your tomorrow is probably not going to be that different from today or yesterday. And similarly, that's probably why this year is pretty much like last year, and next year will pretty much be like this year. So the present moment is very important and very precious as creator beings that we are, because it's the only moment where we can let go of the past and start fresh, where we can make new choices to experience a new reality that we actually like and want. So the way to this moment is by taking the conscious breath. This breath that clears out your mind, clears out your energy, and integrates all of you to join together as a unified body of consciousness back to the now moment, which is the only moment of true creation. And so you can then begin to create something new, anything that you want, but it can only happen here in the now moment. So the breath is very, very important. And so I'm sure there are people who go, well, then how do I do the conscious breath? What's the technique? Well, there are a gazillion techniques out there in every spiritual tradition that talks about how to do conscious breathing, right? There's the yogic breath, the pranayama, where I don't even remember this, but it's like you've got to like put your right thumb on your right nostril and close that up and open up the left nostril, and then taking a breath and hold it for how many seconds, like 4 seconds or something, and then you undo your right nostril and plug the left one in, and you breathe out for 8 seconds or something like that. You know, there's all kinds of stuff out there, these techniques and tools for breathing, but honestly, let's just keep it very simple. If you heard me in the first episode, I talked about how this show is not about any of this old crap, okay? And I'm not saying that those techniques are bad or they're incorrect or any of that. I'm not saying that. But all I'm saying is that if you are someone who wants to wake up in the new consciousness, if you want the fast track to wake up, don't let those things distract you, because what I found out is that because I've done all this myself, that doing those things, these techniques, these very complicated techniques, what it ended up becoming was that it became very mental to me. And I was more concerned about if I was doing the technique right than actually even taking a conscious breath. So if that's what you like to do, then go ahead and go for it. I'm not stopping you in any way. But if you are done with that stuff, and you just want to keep things very clear and very simple, there's another way. And that other way is just to be mindful of your breathing. Take a deep, long breath. There's no rules on how you need to breathe. I mean, you have been doing it all your life anyway, so why do you need to know how to breathe? All I'm saying is a conscious breath, all it takes is you being aware of taking a breath and breathing deeply and fully into all of your being in however way that feels good to you. That's all. So here we are at the end of January of the new year. I don't know anyone around me, myself included, who actually still make New Year's resolutions. But I still hear that it's still a pretty popular game people like to play. And this time of the month, when it's at the tail end, that's the time when the fate of most New Year's resolutions come to light. Or I should say, comes to die, to end. So much of this new year, new you propaganda, and really the only ones that I see laughing their way straight to the bank is the gym and all the other businesses that want to sell you your self-worth. The other day, I read a statistic that said that even in the first week of the new year, 25% of resolutions already fall through. That's just the first week. Come on. And as for the success rate, according to the same statistic, only 8% actually make it. So that's not too promising, but that's not surprising at all. When it comes to New Year's resolutions, the bottom line is that I know, and I know that you know, based on your own experience, that New Year's resolutions, they usually don't work out too well. Whether you want to lose weight, get fit, eat more healthy, quit coffee, quit smoking, quit gluten, whatever the latest thing that's bad for you, or save more money, get a better job, find a better partner while you're at it, volunteer, spend time with your family, whatever that may be, these resolutions, or I guess you can say they're desires for self-evolution, they come from one of two sources, either your true self or your false self, which is another name for ego. And which self you side with is going to determine whether or not your resolution will succeed or fail. And that's because no matter what you set out to do, your level of consciousness is what determines the outcome. It's kind of already set from the start, and if that which you want to change doesn't align with what you are today, now, then no matter how far you attempt to stretch yourself beyond it, it's only going to result in eventually flinging you right back to your baseline. No amount of willpower is going to make it work, and you're only going to end up depleted and exhausted and depressed. But there's an easier way, a simpler way, and that's to take the conscious breath, to be here now, and to choose as your free self. Your true free self is always full and complete. It's totally fine the way it is, totally good the way it is. But the ego, or your imprisoned self, it's incomplete and it's always lacking. Your free self, it wants to evolve and expand into more of itself, more of its own self-realization that leads to self-actualization. While ego, which comes from the camp of never good enough, nobody likes me, it makes you feel like you need to constantly do something to improve yourself today so that you can be a quote-unquote better person tomorrow. Again, the free self, it's so, you can say, so full of itself in the best way possible. It doesn't know anything about self-improvement because it's completely free and full and lacks nothing in every moment. I mean, how can you improve on what's already whole, right? And while it's embodied here as a human, as you, all it does is it wants to simply enjoy, it wants to experience, it wants to express. Instead of trying to improve itself, which is impossible, all it wants is to evolve and expand into higher and freer dimensions with you, as you. It just wants to have a blast. Honestly, it does not care if you're 50 pounds overweight, you're a pack a day, a 2-pack a day smoker, or you can't save worth a dime at the end of each month. It really doesn't. In its pure compassion, as your I am, it accepts and adores you exactly as you are. And this word compassion, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here because this is also a very important word. And I didn't touch on this in the first episode as much as I wanted to. This is a very, very important word that you need to get the meaning correct because this is going to make a huge difference in your consciousness evolution. Like so many words that I'm going to be using throughout the show, this one is a big one because people throw this word around all over the place, and yet most of them have no idea what it really means. And I want to make it very clear from the start. You see, the conventional meaning of compassion as the world has come to know it is about feeling sympathy or pity for someone else's suffering or misfortune. It's feeling sorry for somebody, feeling bad for someone because you think they're in a shitty situation. It's a big-ass pity party that I never want to ever be invited to, and one you should never have for yourself either, or for anyone else for that matter. Because who the hell are you to feel sorry for someone else? Are you more special than them? Are you more blessed than them? As people say, oh, I'm so blessed. Like as if God doles out favors and blesses some people and curses another. And if you declare yourself a master and regard everyone else as masters also, who, like you, create their own realities in the way they choose to experience at the moment, then how can you even consider feeling sorry for them? You should congratulate them. You should be able to look at a homeless person, and instead of putting all your pity energy, your junk all over them, which is just your projection, your judgment anyway, can you be so bold as to be able to smile at them and look at them and, you don't have to tell them this, but you can think to yourself, wow, congratulations for your mastery. I know that you wanted to experience yourself for whatever reasons that I may not know of. You wanted to experience yourself in this predicament, in this situation of being homeless, of being hungry, of being cold or whatever. And you can say, carry on. Blessings, dear brother, dear sister. Really, can you do that? Because if you can't, that just means that you don't believe other people are also masters, but somehow you are. And that's just pure arrogance. And I'm not saying to not help people who are in trouble, who are in need, or whatever. You can still help people if that's what you feel moved to do, if it's also been requested by the other person. If they truly do ask for your help and you feel moved to help them, then that's great. You can still help them as one master having one experience to another master having another experience without having to feel like you're doing this person a favor or somehow you feel obligated because you feel bad for them or whatever it is, whatever junk, whatever judgment that you have that you think that you should do. Instead of just doing what's appropriate, what's maybe been requested and then responding to it. So if they want a buck, give them a buck if that's what you want. If they want a smoke, give them a smoke if that's what you want to do. But all I'm saying is that do it all in an honoring way without spraying all of your pity all over them, is what I'm saying. People who go around with their hands together and saying namaste to everyone. Namaste, it means my I am honors your I am. I, as a creator, honors you as a creator. What namaste it really stands for is pure compassion. And that's what God is. And that's what you are. Because you are God, didn't I tell you from the beginning? It has nothing to do with I'm more special or more blessed than you and that you need my help because I'm in a more fortunate or better situation than you are. That is not the case, and that is not compassion. Now, I can already feel some people like jumping up and down, about to kick my ass for this, but as I mentioned before, I am not talking to them. I'm talking to the awakening ones. And this is a very important distinction that I will be explaining more of in detail later. But I wanted to bring that up for now because I want to at least define the true meaning of what compassion is. The true meaning of compassion is to accept all things as they are, meaning to be able to let everyone and everything be exactly as they are, and being able to honor their choices to create or miscreate in their own way without your intervention. So I digressed a bit, but it was very important that I bring this up now. And it will be something that I will bring up over and over again. But truly, true compassion, it is so important. And ultimately, we'll learn that the ultimate compassion is for you to be compassionate with yourself, because that's what we don't have. And because we are not compassionate with ourselves, that's why we think that we need to go over and basically should all over people. Remember, as within, so without. I talked about this many times in the last episode. If we can get to a point where we are fully compassionate, meaning fully accepting and loving of who we are, of what we are, then the outside world, which is just a projection of your consciousness anyway, all of that, having compassion for that, all of the beings out there, it's just automatic. So let's not concern ourselves with people or things that distract us from the outside, so much as work on learning how to be compassionate to ourselves first, and the rest, it'll just take care of itself. So anyway, back to resolutions. We talked about how siding with one of two sources within you is going to determine the outcome of whether the resolution will come to fruition or it will go bust. And the two sides were your true or free self or your imprisoned self, which is your ego. So your true self, your spirit, your I am, it has full compassion, full acceptance of you, just as you are, regardless of what your little human self thinks of yourself. But the ego, on the other hand, if your I am is pure compassion, this ego, it is pure lack of compassion. It wants you to think that you're lacking and you're full of holes to fill. And because it's incomplete in itself, because it feels less than, it wants you to believe that you need to improve upon yourself. And not only that you need to seek this improvement out there to patch up all the holes that you can't fix on your own in here. It rips away at your self-worth and bombards you with fear, guilt, shame, and doubt. For instance, let's talk about losing weight, since that is always the number one New Year's resolutions of all time. You might think that, I want to lose this weight because I want to get healthy and I want to be a better version of myself and I want to be sexy or whatever it is. But what's really going on is none of that. Because if you come from ego, it's coming from a pure lack of compassion. And I'm so glad that I talked about compassion, because I think that if I didn't go over the meaning, this might be misunderstood. Your ego accepts nothing about you. And instead, even though you say all of those things, that you want to be the better you, the newer you, or more shiny, sexy you, the truth is simply, you just don't like yourself. Admit it. But what's really going on underneath that is that you believe that you're basically fat and ugly and unattractive. And you're afraid that people aren't going to ever get to know who you are because they're going to not like you just because of your weight. Maybe you're afraid that you might lose your partner, or the fact that you're afraid that you're going to be partnerless for all of your life just because you're not attractive enough. You're overweight. Basically, you think that you should lose the weight for whatever fill-in-the-blank fears and shame and guilt that you have. Not because you love yourself exactly the way you are, and now you've had enough of an experience of what it's like to be having a little weight on you, and you simply just want to try something new and to experience what it's like to be a couple sizes smaller and to be able to feel what it's like to have a lighter body. It's the same thing with anything. As long as you think that you need to improve yourself, that by doing that, it's going to make you a better person, all it's saying is that you don't accept yourself, that you don't have compassion for yourself as you are now, and that you need to force yourself oftentimes to do something else. And then you call that improvement, you call that evolution, and you call that being a better person. Why? Because you're so worse off today. Let's use one more example, and this one's also a big one. It's quitting smoking. Because smoking, especially these days, it is really not acceptable in many places. And in fact, oftentimes, when you are a smoker, you're usually a pariah and you have to go stand outside, out in the blizzard like right now, if you want to have a smoke. You can say, I want to quit smoking because I want to be healthier. I don't want to waste money on cigarettes when I can put that in the bank and use it for something better. All of these kind of quasi-positive things that you think is the reason why. But I would wager to say that the real reason, or the underlying reason that most people want to quit smoking, is because they think they're losers and that people look down on you because it's a disgusting habit, or so they say. And then, especially for smoking, right now, science, research, everyone is saying that smoking is dangerous for your health, that it kills you. And so there's this whole fear of dying or being diseased, getting horrible lung cancer out of it, so you have that fear. And then you feel bad because you feel like by smoking, you have zero respect for your own life. And how can you respect somebody who doesn't have respect for their own life, you say, right? And you're talking about yourself. Again, it's about not liking yourself the way you are, not being compassionate with yourself. So whatever it is that you want to do to be more than you are today, if it comes from your human mind or the ego, it's never going to work out. Because as long as you identify with the ego, it is going to always make sure that even if you did succeed in doing a thing, that thing is never going to be good enough. And there's always going to be something else that you need to do to constantly distract yourself from knowing what you really are and to continue to keep looking outside for your happiness. Basically, isn't that what it's about? New Year's resolutions, anything that you want to do to better yourself. It's not really about losing 10 pounds or getting more organized or learning a new language. It's really not that. If you really break down to the essence of it, the essence is that you want to be happy. You want to be free. You want to feel safe and secure. You want to be fulfilled. And all of those things, the ego has none of because it has zero compassion. So if it has none of that, how can it provide you with any of that? From the very beginning, if you make a decision based on your ego self or your human self or your untrue self, you're just setting yourself up for failure. And then I'm not even going to talk about the consequences of feeling like you failed, which is just a complete downward spiral from then on, just making you feel worse and worse about yourself and keeping you perpetually stuck in prison, feeling small, helpless, hopeless, out of control, overwhelmed, whatever it is. As long as you lack compassion for yourself, the chase will never end. There's always going to be that extra 5 pounds to lose all the time because, let's face it, you could never be too thin in the eyes of this world. Maybe you succeed in getting yourself a little raise, but as soon as you get it, maybe you'd be happy that day, maybe that month, or even the next few months or whatever, but at some point, you're going to want more. And not only that, not only are you going to want another raise, you're going to want another title, a bigger title, higher title. Or maybe, again, going to the cigarette example, you've somehow stopped smoking for a month. But you also know that it was such a hard fight that if you let yourself sneak just one cigarette, everything is going to go to hell and you're going to lose all control and you're going to end up smoking more cigarettes than you would have had you ever not tried to stop. As within, so without. Whatever level of consciousness you resonate, you're going to get exactly in kind. You're going to get back that mirror image as your reality. As I've explained, the reason why resolutions don't usually work is because if you come from the ego as your source, then your consciousness, your frequency coming from the source, that's ego, of non-compassion, your vibration stays exactly in line with those feelings of lack and fear and loss. And the reason why it often feels like it's such a tough upward battle is because you could only have your experience from where you're coming from. And it's basically impossible to be anything but that which you are. And then you go out and try to force yourself to battle and struggle yourself into achieving these goals. That's why it's always a struggle. That's why it's always such hard work. And then you think that that's something to be expected, that you need to work hard to get anything that's worth anything. And so you work really, really hard. And it may appear that you have some semblance of a limited success from exerting massive amounts of this force and this willpower. But all of that exertion, it may feel like you're getting somewhere for a little bit. But eventually, because of where you're coming from ego, you're guaranteed to fail. And then you're just going to be so exhausted and depressed and feeling like you're a total failure. So these forced appearances of gains, these false wins, the reason why they're temporary and short-lived is because your internal set point will always take you back to your baseline, that of incompleteness. And because you're incomplete, of course, what are you going to do? Like clockwork, you're going to get right back up and start a new self-improvement program, thinking that maybe you'll succeed next time if you just work a little harder and push a little harder. But the truth is, this whole falling down and getting back up to start over again and over again and again, this is all part of the ego's plan all along. And you're falling right into the trap. And it does that out of self-preservation. It does that because it always wants you to be distracted and thinking that this reality that you created with ego, with your false self, is in fact real, is in fact your truth. Because should you ever recognize what you really are, a free, sovereign creator being, it will die, it will vaporize. So what it does in order to continue its own survival and keep you deluded and basically insane, it lets you experience a taste of seeming success once in a while. Because by tricking you into thinking that you can sometimes get your way, but only if you work really, really, really hard for it, it keeps you going like a donkey with a carrot dangling in front of its face. So for someone like me, and for many of you who understand this, it's actually hilarious because once again, we're living in this upside down, backwards world when people are so proud of living the motto, no pain, no gain, or the fact that they never quit no matter what. They're so proud of that. But if they knew better, if they stopped being donkeys, their life would be so much freer and so much easier and so much more fun. So the reasons why resolutions usually fail, it has nothing to do with what you hear in popular psychology when they say that, oh, you have unrealistic expectations. No, that's not true. Because if you knew what you were, there is nothing that you could not have or could not do and could not experience. But then again, if you look at it from a new consciousness viewpoint, they are true. Modern psychology is true when they say that you have unrealistic expectations. They're absolutely right because quite literally you are being unrealistic. Unrealistic because as long as you're still asleep, you're literally being unrealistic because you're wanting fulfillment from a world that's completely unreal. You can't get any more unrealistic than that. And on a related note, it's also not about what success and productivity experts say about not being more specific with your goal setting. There's a lot of these, what you call law of attraction people who say if you want to manifest something, then you must be as specific as possible. As if drilling down into this false world, this illusory world, and making it more solid is going to really get you what you want, make you any happier or any freer. And the biggest lie of all, oh, you just have to have more willpower. You need the mindset to power through to meet your goals. Mind over matter, they say. And you know what? They're absolutely right, except for one big and totally insane mistake. All power, all force is also a total illusion. But there is something to be had about willpower, because it does sometimes, after a ton of effort, sometimes it appears that you're getting results. But because, like I said, it's an illusion, it's not going to last. And you can hold out as long as you possibly can by having to maintain and defend and work really hard for it. But the day is going to come when it's going to all eventually fold. So all this willpower, all this exertion, it yields a terrible return on investment. And anyone who's smart enough would eventually know how unpractical this willpower is. The problem with most resolutions or any type of self-improvement isn't so much that it's wrong to want to be an improved individual, to want to make choices to actively contribute to your joy and well-being and evolution. That desire to be happy, to live our grandest potential, that actually comes pre-installed in our humanness as the reminder of the grand beings that we truly are. This desire, it's like an internal compass that always points to our divine nature, so that we never lose our way, our connection to home, to our truth. But as you can see, it's important to examine the validity of the source in which this desire to enhance, to upgrade yourself comes from. Does it come from true self, or does it come from your false self or ego? Meaning, is it for the evolution of your highest potential as a divine human, for your wisdom? Or is it merely a little improvement to make the illusion a little more bearable, which then turns right back around and bites you in the back? But like anything, you've got to choose. That choice is yours. And by going within and opening yourself up to the stillness of you, you'll know that all things that come from your truth keeps giving you more of itself, which is only and always fullness, its certainty, ease, grace, joy, and peace. And I'm not saying that the same resolutions you would have as your ego mind can't be had for your highest good. It's really just a simple matter of which side you're coming from. A flatter stomach, quitting smoking, getting organized, conscious money management, learning a new language, all of these and the rest can all be had as the true desire of your spirit, your consciousness. You can. Your consciousness, your spirit, it is in full compassion for you. It allows you to be and have and want whatever it is that you choose. There's nothing unspiritual about wanting to lose weight or wanting to be sexier or wanting more money, bigger and more important titles at your job. But then again, there's nothing spiritual about it either. It's just an experience. It's an experience that we can have because we can as human beings, and that's why we're here, to experience what it's like to be human. But the way that it's done, that's where the difference comes in, because it's not done from a sense of lack, from needing to be more complete, from having to improve from an inferior version of yourself, or to compensate for a totally unwarranted sense of guilt, fear, or shame that you've imposed on yourself. It's really a self-imposition that's going on. So if there's anything that you want to experience, anything that you want to change, go for it. It's all good. But first, it has to come from a total compassion of yourself. Please remember what I said about this word, a total acceptance and love of yourself as you are now. And from that state of completeness, this wholeness, this joy, you can then choose to experience whatever changes you would like, simply for the pure pleasure of experiencing what it's like to have a trimmer, lighter body, to feel more material abundance, to tantalize your taste buds with new cuisines and foods that you've never had, maybe to be able to communicate to people who speak a different language, in their language. Perhaps to learn how to care for shelter animals and feeling what it's like to do that and to give love to them and to receive love from them. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But whatever it is that you choose to experience in the world of form, of this third dimension, as long as you choose from your truth, your sovereignty, you can choose anything you want. And there is never a right and a wrong and a good or a bad. Because as long as you trust yourself, you cannot make a mistake. And whatever it is that you choose, your success is absolutely guaranteed. Because it's not about succeeding or failing by anyone else's standards, but simply about living and experiencing and savoring your passion at each moment and gaining the essence, the wisdom that can only be had by you alone in your own personal way, in your own personal experience. So whatever it is that you want to do, don't turn it into a resolution. And especially don't wait for another year, another month, another day. Don't wait another hour. Just simply love and accept yourself as you are today. And I say simply, but I know, and we all know how freaking difficult that is. But just try. And we'll get into this later about how to start to become more loving and accepting and being more compassionate of yourself. It's not going to happen overnight, but you can begin today. And from that, you can then explore what else you'd like to experience as you continue to find new ways to expand and to evolve and to express your love for you. Well, there's my call. It's time for me to get out of here. If you've enjoyed the show and know of others who might also enjoy it, please help spread the word by sharing. Please visit disconnectmatrix.com. That's disconnectmatrix.com. There, you'll find all the recordings along with show notes for each episode, as well as ways to share with your network. And please leave a comment and start a conversation. In the website, you'll also find links to join me on social media where we can continue the dialogue. And if you'd like to stay in touch, you can subscribe to my email list. My email is alice@disconnectmatrix.com. I welcome your comments, questions, and any suggestions you have to help this show evolve and grow for the benefit of all awakening beings. In fact, I would love to have you heard on the show. If you'd like to state your questions or comments in your own voice for a chance to be included in upcoming episodes, please record your message starting with your name and location on a voice recording app on your device or computer and send the recording to alice@disconnectmatrix.com. Thanks again for joining me. Until next time.